Between 1966 and 1967, mind-boggling events unfolded in Point Pleasant, a small town in West Virginia, United States. An unidentified, terrifying creature appearing in the sky, a being emerging in the night, spreading terror with its bright red eyes. This was the beginning of the Mothman case. These events astonished not only the residents of Point Pleasant, but the entire world. The mysterious emergence of the Mothman went down in history as one of the most extraordinary and terrifying cases of that time. In this video, we will examine all the details of the Mothman case, from the initial eyewitness accounts to the chilling characteristics of this enigmatic creature. From the various theories put forward to the possible connection of the Mothman to the tragic Silver Bridge disaster, and all the way to the lasting impact of this event on popular culture. So, did this winged terror truly exist, or was it just an illusion? Perhaps the answers are far more complex than we think. Mothman legend began on the night of November 15, 1966, just outside the town of Point Pleasant in an abandoned area near Clendenin. This was the site of a massive TNT plant used for explosives production during World War II. That night, two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Millette, were driving through the area with a friend. As midnight approached, near an abandoned generator plant, they noticed something unusual among the trees. Initially, they thought it was a large owl, but as they got closer, they realized it was much more than that. According to the couple's testimonies, this creature was quite large, almost the size of a man, but it had enormous wings and two bright white eyes that glowed in the darkness. Its eyes were so big that some said they looked like bicycle reflectors. Shortly after, the creature silently took flight and began to follow their car. Terrified, the teenagers sped towards Point Pleasant. The creature followed them for a while before disappearing. Once they reached the town, they immediately called the local sheriff's deputy, Millard Halstead, to report what they had experienced. The next day, on November 16th, a local salesman named Raymond Walmsley had a similar experience while driving through the TNT area. Walmsley claimed that he saw the same large winged creature as he drove through the area. According to his account, the creature hovered in the air for a while before flying off into the wooded area and disappearing from sight. Walmsley also reported that his dog went missing after the incident. Following these first two incidents, numerous similar sightings occurred in and around Point Pleasant over the following weeks and months. People reported seeing the creature in different locations and at different times. Some eyewitnesses said the creature was very large and dark-colored, with a very wide wingspan. Others claimed the creature had a human-like body with wings that sprouted from its back. The most striking common feature was its bright red or orange eyes. Many different people, including police officers, firefighters, and ordinary citizens, reported seeing this enigmatic creature. Some eyewitnesses said the creature followed their cars for extended periods, while others said it silently perched on the roofs of their houses or in the tops of trees. After the initial eyewitness accounts, the local press quickly became interested in the story. Soon after, national news agencies also reported this extraordinary tale. Although the creature was initially referred to as a winged creature or similar names, the name Mothman quickly gained popularity. This name was a reference to a character from the Batman comics and aptly reflected the creature's nocturnal, winged, and mysterious nature. Mothman soon became a phenomenon that everyone in America was talking about. According to eyewitness accounts, one of the most striking features of the Mothman was its size. Most witnesses claimed the creature was quite large, with some even reporting seeing a massive figure between 7 and 10 feet tall. This was significantly larger than an average human. Its general appearance was usually described as eerie and unsettling. While there wasn't a clear consensus on its body structure, most witnesses stated that the creature was hairless, with dark-colored skin, usually in shades of black or gray. Some said its skin was smooth and shiny, while others described it as having a rougher texture. Another distinctive feature of the Mothman was its enormous wings. Testimonies varied regarding the structure of the wings. Some eyewitnesses said the wings were wide and leathery, much like those of a bat. Others stated that the wings were more like bird wings, but much larger and more powerful. The wingspan was reported to be quite wide, with some witnesses estimating it to be over 10 feet. Without a doubt, the most terrifying and memorable feature of the Mothman was its eyes. Most eyewitnesses described the creature as having large, hypnotic eyes that glowed brightly in red or orange. These eyes shone like embers in the dark and left a deep impression on the witnesses. Some accounts mention that the eyes were much larger than normal, with some even saying they were as big as bicycle reflectors. An interesting detail is that some eyewitnesses described the Mothman as being headless. According to these witnesses, the creature's eyes were located directly on its shoulders. This made the creature's appearance even more unusual and terrifying. The reported behaviors of the Mothman were just as remarkable as its appearance. Eyewitnesses stated that the creature could fly at incredible speeds and almost completely silently. Some accounts mentioned that it would suddenly appear and disappear from sight just as quickly. Many eyewitnesses reported that the Mothman followed their vehicles for extended periods. This pursuit was often described as a frightening and unsettling experience. Another observed behavior of the Mothman was that it would silently perch in high places, especially in the tops of trees or on the roofs of houses. This gave the impression that the creature was watching or waiting for something. Some eyewitnesses claimed that the Mothman made strange and unidentifiable noises. These sounds were often described as high-pitched shrieks, metallic squeaks, or buzzing sounds, although there was no definitive consensus on this. Another element that further mystified the Mothman case was the other strange events reported concurrently with or immediately following the eyewitness accounts. The most notable of these was the claim by some individuals that they saw unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, with or very near the Mothman. These eyewitnesses described strange lights in the sky, objects making unusual maneuvers, and sometimes even the Mothman flying around or interacting with these objects. This led to speculation about the Mothman's origin and purpose. Perhaps the Mothman was part of an extraterrestrial presence, or was somehow connected to these UFOs. During the Mothman events, some residents of Point Pleasant reported experiencing strange and unsettling occurrences. One of these was receiving odd phone calls with meaningless or threatening content. The callers would often remain silent, make strange noises, or whisper incomprehensible things. Some individuals also claimed to have heard unusual static, interruptions, or strange whispers on radio broadcasts. These types of incidents further increased the fear and tension already present in the town. People wondered if these bizarre communication attempts had any connection to the Mothman. Another mysterious phenomenon frequently associated with the Mothman case was the appearance of figures known as the Men in Black. Some eyewitnesses claim that shortly after seeing the Mothman, they were visited by individuals who identified themselves as official personnel, dressed in black suits, wearing hats, and usually having strange, expressionless faces. These individuals would ask the eyewitnesses questions about the Mothman, warn them not to tell anyone else about what they had seen, and sometimes even exhibit threatening behavior. These visits deeply affected and frightened the eyewitnesses. Who the Men in Black were, what their purpose was, and how they were connected to the Mothman remains largely unknown. This has been a factor that further fueled the mystery and conspiracy theories surrounding the Mothman case. These strange occurrences, such as UFO sightings, bizarre phone calls, radio interference, and the appearance of the Men in Black, suggest that the Mothman case might have been more than just an animal or a natural phenomenon. These events strengthen the beliefs that the incident could have been supernatural, extraterrestrial, or at least something much more complex, and it is one of the reasons why the Mothman legend remains so intriguing and mysterious even today. One of the most tragic and memorable events of the Mothman case was the Silver Bridge disaster that occurred on December 15, 1967. On that day, during heavy traffic, this important bridge over the Ohio River suddenly and inexplicably collapsed. In this horrific event, 46 people lost their lives and many others were injured. The bridge's collapse caused deep sorrow and shock in Point Pleasant and the surrounding areas. The Silver Bridge was a suspension bridge made of steel, built in 1928, and was considered a modern engineering marvel for its time. The cause of the bridge's collapse was investigated for a long time, and it was finally determined that a small crack in one of the bridge's main connection points grew over time, leading to the catastrophe. However, this technical explanation did not fully explain the mysterious connection that many believed existed between the Mothman and the bridge. The fact that Mothman sightings intensified shortly before the Silver Bridge disaster and then suddenly ceased after the tragedy led many to interpret this enigmatic creature as a kind of bad omen. or a harbinger of the impending catastrophe. People began to believe that the Mothman's arrival in Point Pleasant and the sightings were a warning sign that this terrible event was going to happen. In the days and weeks leading up to the disaster, some eyewitnesses reported seeing the Mothman near the Silver Bridge. These accounts varied, with some saying the Mothman flew over the bridge, perched on its towers, or glided over the river. These testimonies led to the establishment of a mystical connection between the Mothman's presence and the bridge's collapse. Following the Silver Bridge disaster, Mothman sightings suddenly and completely stopped. This further strengthened the beliefs that the Mothman's purpose was somehow connected to the bridge, or the disaster that occurred. For many, the Mothman was no longer just a mysterious creature, but also a harbinger of an approaching tragedy. This timing between the Mothman's presence in Point Pleasant and the collapse of the Silver Bridge added a supernatural dimension to the event and played a significant role in the lasting legacy of the Mothman legend. Even today, many people believe that the Mothman's appearance in Point Pleasant in those tragic days was not a coincidence. There are also various natural explanations for the Mothman phenomenon. One of the most common theories is that eyewitnesses may have misidentified large owl species. Some owl species, like the great horned owl, can be quite large, and their eyes can reflect light brightly at night, especially in car headlights. Another possibility is that long-legged, wide-winged birds like cranes or herons may have created the illusion of a human-like shape in twilight or foggy conditions. Additionally, mass hysteria or psychological effects could be an explanation. The fear and curiosity that spread after the initial sightings might have led other people to experience similar quote-unquote sightings, or to interpret existing ambiguous images as the Mothman. Misidentification and exaggeration are also common reasons for such events. Paranormal explanations for the Mothman are also quite popular. According to one theory, the Mothman is an extraordinary creature not yet identified by science, in other words, a cryptid. Perhaps it is a member of an unknown species living in the Point Pleasant area. Another paranormal explanation is that the Mothman could be an extraterrestrial being, or one that came from another dimension. The connection with UFO sightings also supports this theory. According to some beliefs, the Mothman is a supernatural entity or a kind of omen that foretells a bad event. The fact that sightings ceased after the Silver Bridge disaster is also presented as an argument supporting this theory. Finally, there is a more earthly, yet still mysterious theory that could have led to the Mothman legend. According to this theory, secret military experiments or the testing of new technologies conducted in the abandoned TNT area might have caused unusual sights or sounds that eyewitnesses misinterpreted. Perhaps what was seen as the Mothman was a secret military aircraft or an experimental vehicle. However, this theory struggles to fully explain some of the described physical characteristics and behaviors of the creature. To summarize, each theory has its own logical basis and the criticisms it faces. While natural explanations are based on known phenomena, they may not be sufficient to explain all the eyewitness accounts and strange events. Paranormal theories, while keeping the mystery alive, struggle to provide scientific evidence. The secret military experiments theory, while able to explain some events, cannot fully account for all the creature's features and behaviors. As a result, the Mothman phenomenon remains an unsolved mystery to this day. One of the biggest impacts of the Mothman case on popular culture began with the publication of journalist and author John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, in 1975. By personally investigating the events, interviewing eyewitnesses, and presenting his own theories, Keel brought the Mothman legend to a wider audience. The book garnered significant interest and transformed the Mothman from just a local legend into an international phenomenon. The Hollywood film of the same name, released in 2002, further boosted the Mothman's popularity. Starring Richard Gere, the film was inspired by Keel's book and dramatically brought the Mothman events and the Silver Bridge disaster to the big screen. The film was watched by a large audience worldwide and introduced the Mothman legend to new generations. After John Keel's book and the film, the Mothman found its place in various areas of popular culture. From comic books to video games, from television series to documentaries, many different media products have made references to the Mothman character or legend. The Mothman, which frequently appears in productions of the horror and mystery genres, continues to be depicted as a terrifying and enigmatic figure. One of the most interesting developments is the complete embrace of the Mothman legend by the town of Point Pleasant. The town has turned these extraordinary events into a tourism opportunity. A huge Mothman statue stands in the center of the city, and a Mothman museum that attracts thousands of people every year welcomes visitors. In addition, the annual Mothman Festival, held every September, brings together enthusiasts and researchers from all over the world in Point Pleasant. The festival features Mothman-themed events, panels, film screenings, and various entertainments. This festival both keeps the legend alive and provides a significant economic contribution to the town. Despite the fact that more than half a century has passed since it was seen, the Mothman legend still maintains its popularity today and continues to capture people's interest. There are countless discussions, theories, and shares about the Mothman on internet forums, social media, and various platforms. This shows that the Mothman is not just an event that happened in the past, but also a current cultural phenomenon. Perhaps the Mothman is a reflection of our curiosity about the unknown and our interest in mysterious events. Who knows? Maybe the Mothman will one day reappear in the skies of Point Pleasant, and this legend will continue to live on forever.